Racist cop Pepper sprayed a black boy without knowing his father is a high-ranking FBI official. Before we start today's story, comment below where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss what's next. The scream tore through the quiet afternoon like the loud siren of a fire truck. Everyone nearby could hear it. It was sharp and painful, and it belonged to a 12-year-old boy named Malik Johnson. Malik stumbled backward, holding his face with both hands. His eyes felt like they were burning in fire. His skin was on fire too. He could hardly see. His chest heaved as he gasped for air. The reason for all this pain was simple. A police officer had just sprayed him with pepper spray. His knees buckled beneath him, and his backpack slipped off his shoulders and hit the concrete sidewalk with a heavy thud. Just a second ago, Malik had been walking peacefully to the park. He had his sketchbook tucked under one arm, ready to draw superheroes, something he loved to do. But now, everything has changed. He had never expected this. A white police officer, someone he had been told all his life to trust, had attacked him without warning. The officer's badge showed the number 624, and his name tag read Doyle. He was tall, his jaw was tight, and his eyes were cold and angry. "Don't move," Doyle shouted in a harsh voice. Malik lifted his hands in front of him. They were red and trembling from the spray. He shook his head, his small voice cracking. "I didn't do anything. What's happening?" "I said don't move." Doyle barked again, louder this time. Malik's vision was pure blur. He couldn't see. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He cried out, his voice full of pain and confusion. "Why did you spray me? What did I do wrong?" Doyle didn't answer. He reached forward, grabbed Malik's thin arm, and twisted it sharply behind his back. The pain made Malik whimper. By now, people on the street had started noticing. Cars slowed. A woman across the street dropped her grocery bags, the apples rolling away. A teenager lifted his phone and began recording. "Hey!" someone shouted. "That kid didn't do anything." But Doyle only tightened his grip. He leaned close to Malik's ear and hissed, "You think you can run around here stealing and no one's going to stop you?" "I wasn't stealing," Malik cried, choking on tears. "I swear, I was just walking to the park." Malik thought back quickly. Just 20 minutes ago, he had been at home. He had rushed through his homework because he wanted to go outside early. His mom had left for work at the dental clinic. His dad was far away in Washington, D.C., working on a very important case for the FBI. Malik didn't know the details. His dad couldn't tell him, but he knew it was serious. His dad's job was so serious that even adults seemed scared when his dad spoke in his firm, deep voice. But Malik wasn't an FBI agent. He was just 12 years old. He just wanted to draw his superheroes, maybe eat some ice cream with his friends, maybe play basketball at the park. Now, instead of fun, he was being shoved into the back seat of a police cruiser by someone who hadn't even asked his name. Officer Doyle slammed the car door shut. He wiped his hands on his pants as if he had been handling something dirty. Malik sat in the back seat, shaking. His eyes were swollen, his skin burned, and the taste of chemicals still sat on his lips. His mind raced. He whispered, "Where's my backpack?" His voice was weak. The officer didn't answer. The car started moving. "Please," Malik begged, more desperate now. "I didn't do anything wrong." Doyle chuckled darkly. "This time. You people never think you do anything wrong." The words hit Malik harder than the pepper spray. He flinched, hurt by the officer's cruel tone. Back at the corner store, Mr. Patel, the shop owner, was still trying to make sense of everything. Someone had taken a soda and a candy bar. That was all. He had never said the suspect was a child. He had never said anything about a yellow hoodie. Doyle hadn't waited for details. He had jumped to conclusions. Across the street, a bystander uploaded the video of Doyle dragging Malik to Twitter. Within 2 hours, it would spread everywhere. Hashtags would trend. People would get angry. Reporters would call. But none of that mattered now. Right now, Malik sat silently in the back of the car, tears drying on his face, trying hard not to cry again. He remembered his father's words. Asterisk, stay calm. Stay observant. There's power in silence if you're watching carefully. Asterisk. But how do you stay calm when you've just been attacked for nothing? The car ride was short. Soon, they pulled into the police station's underground lot. Doyle didn't say a word. He yanked the door open, grabbed Malik, and dragged him out. He didn't stop at the front desk. No one asked why a child with red, swollen eyes was being taken in alone. Doyle shoved Malik into an empty interrogation room. The walls were gray. The light above flickered. Sit. Doyle barked. Malik hesitated. I said S.I. Doyle shouted louder. Malik sat down. His knees knocked together, and he wiped his burning eyes with his hoodie sleeve. Doyle leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Where did you hide the stolen stuff? Malik blinked through the blur. What stuff? Don't play dumb, Doyle snapped. I didn't take anything, Malik said softly. Doyle smirked. You think that's going to work? I saw you walking away like nothing happened. That's what guilty people do. Malik looked up, face puffy but voice steady. No, that's what kids do. For a second, Doyle's face twitched. Then he turned and left the room. Malik was alone now. His eyes still burned, his throat still hurt, but he remembered his dad's lessons. Breathe, stay calm, watch carefully. He noticed the camera in the corner. He spoke out loud, calmly. My name is Malik Johnson. I'm 12 years old. I was pepper sprayed and arrested without being told why. I didn't steal anything. I didn't resist. I didn't even go into the store. I was just walking. I hope someone is watching this. And someone was. Down the hallway, Elena Vega, a young intern at the precinct, sat at a desk sorting papers. A beep from her supervisor's computer caught her attention. She clicked into the security feed. Her stomach dropped when she saw Doyle dragging in a crying child. She didn't know who Malik was, but she knew it wasn't right. Quietly, she pulled out her phone and started recording the monitor, just in case. Back in the room, Malik sat silently, his palms sweaty against the cold metal table. 15 minutes passed, maybe more. He had no phone, no watch. His backpack was still lying on the street. His eyes itched, his skin burned. Worst of all was the silence. Finally, the doorknob turned. Doyle walked back in with a folder in one hand and a wet cloth in the other. He threw the cloth on the table. Clean yourself up. Malik didn't move. Doyle grew annoyed. He snatched the cloth back up, grabbed Malik's chin, and scrubbed roughly. The cold rag scraped Malik's raw skin. Malik winced in pain. Too sensitive, huh? Should have thought about that before stealing, Doyle muttered. I didn't steal anything, Malik said firmly. Doyle threw the rag down and sat across from him. He opened the folder. It was blank. I don't need proof, he said. The call came in. You matched the suspect. That's enough. The call didn't even say yellow, Malik replied quietly. You were there. I wasn't. You ran. I walked. Doyle slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing. Malik jumped, his breath catching. Don't act tough, Doyle growled. You don't get your mouth off when you're in this chair with pepper spray still on your face. Malik's hands curled into fists. He wanted to scream, but he remembered his father's words. Asterisk power in silence. Don't give them what they want. Asterisk. So instead, he asked calmly, why are you doing this? Doyle stared at him like he didn't understand. Then he leaned forward, his eyes sharp and cruel. Because kids like you think the rules don't apply to you. Someone has to teach you a lesson. The door creaked open. A tall man in his 40s entered, wearing plain clothes. A badge clipped to his belt read Detective Mark Harris. Doyle, step out, Harris said firmly. Doyle hesitated, frowning, but finally left. Harris turned to Malik. His voice softened. You okay, kid? Malik nodded, but he wasn't sure he trusted him. You sure? Harris tilted his head. Your face looks like you wrestled a hot sauce bottle. Malik stayed quiet. You got a name? Harris asked gently. Malik Johnson, the boy whispered. Harris froze. Something flickered in his eyes. Johnson? Middle name? Michael, Malik answered. Birthday? March 3rd. Why? Harris pulled out his precinct tablet and typed quickly. His eyes stopped on the screen. He looked up at Malik, surprised. Is your dad named Aaron? Malik didn't answer, but his silence was enough. Harris stepped back, muttering, You've got to be kidding me. He left quickly. In the hallway, he caught up with Doyle before he returned to the squad room. We need to talk, Harris said sharply. What now? Doyle muttered. Harris showed him the tablet. Doyle squinted, then frowned. His face turned pale. No way. That can't be him. It is, Harris said firmly. That's Agent Johnson's kid. Doyle's lips parted. I didn't know. Didn't know or didn't care? Harris snapped. You pepper-sprayed a 12-year-old. Dragged him here. Never called his parents. For a soda theft you didn't even confirm. He was resisting. Doyle stammered. He was 12, Harris shot back. Doyle opened his mouth, but no words came. Where's the station chief? Harris demanded. In his office, Doyle muttered weakly. Well, I'm not covering for you, Harris warned. His voice was cold. Around the corner, Elena Vega still listened. She had been recording everything. Her phone captured it all, the proof that Doyle had gone too far. And in that gray room, Malik sat quietly, waiting, remembering his father's words. Stay calm. Stay observant. Watch carefully. He didn't know it yet, but the truth was already on his side. She stepped into the room holding her phone tightly like it was a treasure. Her face was serious, and her voice was firm. I have the whole thing on video, she said. Officer Doyle's head whipped around so fast you'd think his neck might snap. His eyes went wide. You were spying on me? He barked, his face red. No, Elena said, standing tall even though her hands were shaking. I wasn't spying. I was watching a kid being hurt. That's not spying. That's protecting. Another officer, Harris, turned to Elena. His eyebrows rose. You recorded it? Yes, Elena answered simply. She didn't look scared anymore. And I'll keep it safe. Doyle's voice grew louder, sharp and angry. You can't use that. That won't even work in court. It's not allowed. But Elena didn't flinch. She stood firm. I'm not the one who's going to prison. In the small, cold interrogation room, Malik sat frozen in his chair. His heart thumped fast, like a drum inside his chest. He had no idea what was going on outside, but for the first time since this horrible day began, something inside him shifted. He could feel it, like the walls themselves were breathing different air. Something was cracking open. 10 minutes later, the door creaked and swung wide. A tall man in a dark suit stepped into the room. His shoes clicked on the floor, but he didn't say anything right away. Instead, he just studied Malik. His eyes moved carefully, as if checking every part of him. Finally, he spoke. Are you hurt? Malik nodded, very slowly. My name is Captain Morris, the man said. His voice was steady, calm, but also heavy with authority. I'm the senior officer here. Malik stayed quiet, not sure if he could trust this man. Morris knelt down, lowering himself to Malik's level. His eyes softened. We're going to get you cleaned up, and then you're going to call your father. Malik's eyes widened. You know who my father is? Morris took a deep breath through his nose. His voice lowered when he answered. Yes, I know exactly who he is. Then Morris stood tall again and turned toward the hallway. His voice suddenly became sharp and commanding. Get me Agent Johnson. Now. Inside a glass-paneled office, Officer Ryan Doyle sat hunched at a desk. His hands were clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His leg bounced up and down under the table like a restless machine. The walls felt smaller than before, colder too. His phone buzzed on the desk. He looked down. The video Elena had uploaded anonymously was already spreading online. It was on Twitter, the words blazing under it. Asterisk, 12-year-old black boy pepper-sprayed and arrested in Fairfax. No charges. No crime. Just skin color. Asterisk. Doyle's stomach flipped. His throat felt dry. His career wasn't just in trouble. It might already be over. Then his phone buzzed again. A new call lit up the screen. The name made his blood run cold. Aaron Johnson. Doyle didn't answer. He couldn't. Because some storms you don't outrun. And this one was already here. Far away, in Washington, D.C., silence filled an office inside the Hoover Building. The office looked neat, even peaceful, with shiny wood furniture, framed awards on the walls, and big maps showing threat zones across the East Coast. A flat screen on the wall played muted news. But at the desk sat Aaron Johnson, one of the highest-ranking FBI counterterrorism agents. His face looked unreadable, calm on the outside. But his hand gave him away. The fingertips of his right hand tapped on the desk over and over, like a ticking clock winding tighter and tighter. On his phone screen was a paused video. In the image, a white officer dragged a small, handcuffed black boy toward a patrol car. The boy's yellow hoodie stood out bright as sunshine. His face, even blurry, was unmistakable. It was Malik, his son. Aaron had already watched the video 3 times. He hadn't moved since the second. The call from Captain Morris had come minutes earlier. Morris's voice had cracked slightly as he said, "Sir, I think you need to come down to the station. There's something you should see. And someone." Aaron didn't need an escort. He stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked out of the Hoover Building without a single word to his team. When the elevator doors closed behind him, the air itself seemed to shift. He wasn't just Malik's father anymore. He was a storm. Back in Fairfax, the police station buzzed like a beehive, but it wasn't real work. It was panic dressed up as busyness. No one met each other's eyes. No one dared speak too loud. Elena, the young intern, sat nervously near the break room. Her phone was on airplane mode. She had already backed up the footage twice, once in the cloud, and once sent to her cousin in Baltimore. Just in case. Officer Doyle stayed hidden in his office. Captain Morris paced outside, waiting for Johnson to arrive. Morris had worked in this field for 19 years. He had seen mistakes before, even ugly misconduct. But this was different. Not just because it was wrong. Not just because it was cruel. But because the boy they hurt was the son of a decorated federal agent. Then Morris heard it. Boots. Heavy, measured boots walking through the precinct entrance. The hallway went silent at once. Agent Aaron Johnson walked in wearing a long dark overcoat, his black gloves in one hand. His eyes were straight ahead, hard and focused. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Officers straightened their spines. The air itself seemed to command respect. Morris swallowed hard and stepped forward. "Agent Johnson." "Where is he?" Aaron's voice was cool and exact, like a blade. "In interview room 3, Morris said quickly. "I want eyes on him the entire time I'm here. Do you understand?" Aaron ordered. Morris nodded fast. "And I want Officer Doyle. Now." "Yes, sir. But I think we should." Aaron's jaw tightened. He didn't wait for permission. He walked toward the interview room. Inside, Malik sat with his back straight, his little hands resting in his lap. His face was swollen and red, but his eyes were still sharp. His sketchbook was gone, but his spirit wasn't broken. The door opened. A tall shadow filled the frame. "Dad." Malik's voice cracked. Aaron stepped in fast, kneeling down in front of his son. His hands were already checking Malik's face gently, carefully. Are you hurt? If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe and share your favorite part in the comments below. And don't forget to drop a heart to show your support. Malik nodded just once. I'm okay. But it still burns. Aaron breathed sharply through his nose. They sprayed you. Malik didn't answer. He didn't have to. Aaron stood, his frame straight as iron, and turned toward the one-way mirror. He stared at it like he could see through to the people hiding behind. His voice cut the air. Bring that officer in here. And bring the footage. Outside, Elena jumped at the command. But she wasn't afraid. She moved quickly, grabbed the USB where she had saved the video, and ran to the control room. Meanwhile, Officer Doyle sat sweating in his chair. Captain Morris opened the door. Now. Doyle swallowed hard. Do I get a union rep? Ask fast if you want one, Morris said. Doyle stood on stiff legs, like walking to his own trial. When Doyle entered the room, he didn't look at Malik. His eyes darted everywhere else. He opened his mouth, then froze when he saw Aaron standing tall, silent, but heavy with power. I didn't know who he was, Doyle stammered. Aaron turned slowly, his stare cutting. Does that make it better? Doyle's lips trembled. Sir, No, Aaron interrupted, voice sharp. You don't get to call me sir. You pepper sprayed my son without provocation. You arrested him with no probable cause. You didn't call his parents. You didn't notify child services. And you tried to force a confession from a 12-year-old. Malik's eyes went wide. He had never heard his father speak like that. So calm, so exact, so cold. Every word was like a blade of ice. Morris entered quietly behind Doyle, but Aaron didn't turn. Roll the tape. The wall screen lit up. Elena had connected it from the console. There it was. Doyle stepped out of his cruiser, walking fast toward Malik in his yellow hoodie. Doyle sprayed him in the face. Malik's backpack falling. Malik screams. Malik collapsed on the ground. Malik watched himself crumble on the screen. His stomach twisted, his body remembering the pain. Aaron didn't blink. When the video ended, silence filled the room. Finally, Aaron spoke. I want a full internal review. And I want it sent to federal oversight. I'll handle the rest. Doyle's voice cracked. Please. I didn't mean, I thought he matched the description. There was no description, Aaron said without raising his voice. The store owner never confirmed anything. You acted on bias. You saw a black kid near a store and decided that was enough. I didn't know he was your son, Doyle whispered weakly. That's your defense? Aaron asked, his tone sharp. That if it had been someone else's black son, it would have been fine? Doyle flinched like the words hit him. Malik looked at Doyle quietly, then asked, Would you have apologized if I wasn't his son? The room fell silent. Aaron put a firm hand on Malik's shoulder, grounding him. Then he said calmly, I'm pressing federal charges. Excessive force. Civil rights violation. Endangerment of a minor. And I'll make sure your name is known in every precinct from here to Oregon. Doyle's face turned ghostly white. You have no idea the career I've built, Aaron added coldly. And now you'll be the reason they rewrite the handbook on how to treat children in custody. Doyle's knees nearly buckled as he was led away. Elena entered again, carrying another file. Agent Johnson, she said, her voice nervous but steady. I pulled the original security footage from the store. The real suspect has tattoos. He was wearing a black hoodie. Thank you, Aaron replied. Send it to IIA. Malik sat back, watching everything move around him like a storm shifting course. His world has changed today. But for the first time, he felt safe. For the first time, he felt seen. That evening, Malik sat in the passenger seat of his father's black SUV. The glowing screen on the dashboard lit the car in blue. Malik stared at it, But he wasn't really reading. His mind spun in circles. He saw again the room, Doyle's pale face, the way his father had walked in and taken control without yelling once. It was like watching thunder silence a whole sky. Aaron gripped the steering wheel hard, his jaw tight. He wasn't just thinking about today. The hardest part wasn't what had happened. The hardest part was knowing, deep in his gut, that Malik wasn't the first child this had happened to. He was just the son of someone powerful. They drove in silence until the freeway stretched wide ahead of them. Finally, Malik whispered, "Are you mad at me?" Aaron's hands loosened on the wheel. "Why would I be mad at you?" "I didn't say anything," Malik said, his voice tiny. "About who you were. About who I was. Maybe if I had." "Don't," Aaron cut in gently but firmly. "Don't ever think it was your job to fix this. You don't owe anyone your identity. Not when they already see you as guilty before you open your mouth." Malik slumped back. I didn't think it would feel like that. I've seen videos. I've heard stories. But when it's you..." His voice trailed off. Aaron reached over and placed a warm hand on his son's shoulder. "It's not supposed to feel normal. It's not supposed to feel like anything." Malik didn't reply, but the touch calmed him. When they pulled into their gated townhouse, another black FBI sedan waited outside. An agent stepped out quickly. It was Dana Whitaker, one of Aaron's closest friends. To Malik, she was Aunt Dana, even though they weren't related. She walked up to the car before Aaron even turned off the engine. "We've got a problem," she said urgently. Aaron stepped out, his coat still heavy on his shoulders. "I'm already dealing with a problem." "This one's inside the bureau," Dana said softly. Her voice dropped. Someone in the precinct leaked the video to an alt-right blog before Elena's upload hit the news. They're spinning it already, saying Malik resisted, that he's gang-affiliated. They're trying to share his private info online. Aaron didn't blink, but a pulse ticked at his temple. Did the bureau push back? "We tried. But you know how fast these lies spread. And because you're involved, it's feeding conspiracy loops." Aaron muttered, "Of course. They're making it about me. Do you want me to call it legal?" Dana asked. "No," Aaron said darkly. "Let them keep trying to cover it up. Because the more they try, the more obvious the truth becomes." Inside the house, Malik peeked from the door. His stomach twisted at the words gang-affiliated and sharing info. He wasn't stupid. He knew what that meant. They were already trying to ruin him. Already trying to paint him as the problem. He closed the door very softly so it would not make a sound. Then he walked upstairs, step by step, until he reached his room. On his desk sat his sketch pad, the one he loved to use when he wanted to draw superheroes. The last drawing he had started showed a superhero in a bright yellow hoodie. But the picture was not finished. The pencil still lay across the page, exactly where he had left it that morning. He looked at it but did not pick it up. Downstairs, Aaron came back into the house. He pulled off his heavy coat and dropped it on the chair before sitting down on the couch with a sigh. He looked tired, like someone who had carried too much for too long. Whitaker walked in behind him. She lowered her voice, like she didn't want the walls to hear what she was saying. "Are you ready for what this will mean?" she asked carefully. "I wasn't yesterday," Aaron admitted. "But I am now." That night, Aaron made a phone call. But it wasn't to a reporter. It wasn't to a politician either. He called someone very different, a man named Victor Hale. Aaron hadn't spoken to Victor in years. Victor used to be an investigator at the Department of Justice. He made sure people's civil rights were protected. But after he became a whistleblower, he left. Now, he worked with a private group that followed cases of police officers doing wrong things. "I've got footage," Aaron told him quietly. "And a name." Victor paused for a moment before replying. "Do you want me to run it?" he asked. "I want you to destroy his career," Aaron said, his voice steady. "But you're still FBI," Victor reminded him. Aaron shook his head, even though Victor couldn't see him through the phone. "I'm a father, and I'm tired of cleaning up other people's messes behind closed doors." The next morning, the world changed. By 9 o'clock, the fake footage had already been proven false. It was debunked. People stopped believing it. But Elena's real video, the one showing what really happened, spread everywhere. It was on CNN. It was on MSNBC. It was on local news channels. The video was everywhere. And with it came a hashtag that started trending across social media. Justice for Malik. People were angry. People wanted answers. Officer Doyle, the man at the center of it all, had gone quiet. But not for long. Around noon, Elena got a text message from a private number. The words on the screen made her heart race. "He's trying to cover his tracks. Check the precinct system logs from yesterday." Elena sat at her desk back at the station. She knew it was dangerous, but she couldn't ignore it. She opened the computer system and began digging. Her fingers typed quickly as she searched through Doyle's activity. And what she found made her stomach twist. Doyle hadn't just acted badly. He had lied. He typed in a false suspect description into the system 45 minutes after arresting Malik, not before. That meant there was no real suspect with the name B. There was no proof. There was no report when Malik was arrested. Doyle had made it all up later, to justify his actions. Elena's hands shook as she sent the file directly to Aaron. 10 minutes later, Aaron walked into the FBI's Oversight Division. He handed the file to the officer at the desk and said firmly, "Start a formal complaint. Add obstruction, falsification of evidence, and misconduct." The officer looked down at the name on the file and froze. "Wait, isn't this the same guy from the Fairfax arrest?" Aaron's voice stayed calm and even. "It is." At Malik's school, things were changing too. Parents were starting to ask questions. Students began to organize. One of Malik's classmates, a girl named Lila, made colorful flyers. On the flyers was a QR code that linked directly to the video of Malik's arrest. The flyer said, "This is our classmate. This could have been any of us." The principal saw the flyers and tried to stop them from being passed around. But it was too late. By noon, 3 news crews had shown up at the school gates. Cameras were rolling. Reporters were asking questions. Aaron's phone buzzed with a text from Dana Whitaker. "People are starting to notice." Aaron typed back one word. "Good." Meanwhile, Officer Doyle sat inside his dark apartment. The blinds stayed closed. His phone buzzed again and again with blocked calls and voicemails, but he ignored them. The sound made him nervous. That evening, there was a knock on his door. "Officer Ryan Doyle?" a man asked when Doyle opened it. A federal marshal stood there, holding an envelope. "You are being served with a summons. Civil complaint. You have a hearing next week." Doyle's hands shook as he took the papers. "Who filed it?" he asked. The marshal didn't blink. "Aaron Johnson, on behalf of his son." When the marshal left, Doyle sat on his couch, staring at the envelope. His career, his badge, his very identity, it was all slipping away. His chest tightened. His heart pounded. And then a terrifying thought hit him. Malik hadn't even spoken. He hadn't given an interview. He hadn't made a social media post. He hadn't said a word in public. And still the truth was rolling through the world like a train that couldn't be stopped. At the Fairfax City Council chamber, the room was filled from wall to wall. It was rare for a Wednesday morning. The bright lights buzzed above the crowd. Journalists clutched notebooks, pens, and cameras. The county seal gleamed on the podium. Residents filled the seats, whispering in disbelief, anger, and pain. Local activists held signs. "Children deserve safety. Justice for Malik. Accountability now." Across the aisle, a few police officers sat stiffly. Their arms were folded. Their eyes didn't move. They looked angry. In the front row sat Malik. His mother, Monique, held his knee protectively. She hadn't left his side since the video went public. On Malik's other side sat Aaron, dressed neatly in a suit. His jaw was tight. His eyes didn't leave the podium. Captain Morris stepped up to the microphone. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted it. His voice trembled. "This hearing," he said, "was called to address the events involving Officer Ryan Doyle and his handling of minor Malik Johnson on the afternoon of the 17th. He didn't say the word race. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. Across town, Doyle sat in a room with no windows. He faced an internal affairs investigator and a Department of Justice official who had flown in from Washington, D.C. Doyle's eyes were dark and tired. His police uniform was gone. He wore a wrinkled collared shirt instead. In front of him lay piles of papers, witness statements, copies of false entries, timestamps, and the original surveillance video Elena had saved. "This is out of context," Doyle muttered. "He didn't follow commands." Denise Clark, the internal affairs officer, stared at him without blinking. "What commands?" she asked. "He looked suspicious," Doyle said. "Suspicion is not a crime," Clark shot back. The DOJ official cut in. "I had probable cause," Doyle stammered. "You didn't log that until 45 minutes after the arrest," Clark snapped. "You changed the record to fit your story." Doyle's throat felt tight. "I didn't know he was." "Say it," Clark said, her voice sharp. "I didn't know he was Johnson's kid." "And if he hadn't been?" Doyle faltered. His lips trembled. I don't know." Clark leaned back. "Then we do." Back at the city council hearing, Malik was asked to speak. He shook his head at first. He didn't want to. But Aaron leaned over and said gently, "It's your voice they need to hear, not mine." Malik nodded slowly. He walked up to the microphone. The room fell silent. He looked small behind the podium, but his voice began to rise. "I was just walking to the park," he said. "I had my sketchbook. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But Officer Doyle saw me and decided I was guilty." He looked at the crowd. Their eyes were filled with anger, sadness, and shame. "I didn't say who my dad was, because I didn't think I needed to. I thought I had rights anyway." The room grew still. "I know I was lucky," Malik continued, "because someone recorded it. Because I had people to protect me. But what about the kids who don't?" Gasps filled the room. Someone in the back wiped their eyes. "I'm not here so you can feel bad," Malik said, stronger now. "I'm here because I want to know what you're going to do about it." Whispers rose in the room. A few people clapped before the councilwoman called for order. Aaron sat quietly, his pride hidden behind a still face. Monique squeezed his hand tighter. That same day, Officer Doyle was suspended without pay. The Fairfax Police Department said they would work with the DOJ civil rights investigation. But Aaron was not finished. 2 days later, he stood behind a different podium in Washington, D.C., at the Department of Justice. The national press filled the room with flashing cameras. "I want to make something clear," Aaron said. "This is not about one bad officer. This is about a system that lets him act unchecked. A system that rewards quick assumptions instead of careful thought. A system that allowed him to target a child because of his skin color." A reporter asked, "Agent Johnson, are you saying the department failed your son?" Aaron looked straight at her. "I'm saying the department fails someone's son every day. Mine just happened to be the one caught on camera." Another reporter raised her hand. "What do you want to see happen next?" "I want real reform," Aaron said. "Body camera footage made public within 48 hours. Independent review boards. Racial bias training that is mandatory, not optional. And I want this case, the case of Ryan Doyle, to show the consequences of abusing power." In the back, Elena listened with wide eyes. She clutched her notepad. She hadn't expected to be mentioned, but she was. "I also want to thank those who stood up when it was uncomfortable," Aaron added, including Elena Vega, whose honesty made sure the truth was not lost. Later, Elena walked up to him in the hallway. "I didn't do it to be thanked," she said softly. I know, Aaron said, shaking her hand. That's what makes it matter even more. The next Monday, Malik went back to school. He expected whispers. He expected kids to stare. But instead, he saw students standing at the front gate, holding a banner that read, "We walk with Malik." Lila came up to him, smiling. "Guess we're all troublemakers now," she said playfully. For the first time in days, Malik smiled. "Yeah, guess we are." But not everyone was happy. In the shadows of the police precinct, some officers whispered bitterly. They thought Doyle was being used as a scapegoat. One man in particular, Sergeant Dunley, clenched his fists as he watched the news. He muttered, "This won't stick." But he didn't know that Aaron had already given Internal Affairs more names. Other officers, other hidden reports, other badges with dirty secrets. Aaron wasn't looking for revenge. He wanted to clean the whole house. And now the rot had nowhere left to hide. In the FBI conference room, the air buzzed with quiet intensity. Charts and reports covered the glass walls. Aaron Johnson stood tall at the head of the table, facing agents, leaders, and DOJ officials. He didn't begin with numbers. He didn't begin with slides. He began with his son. "You all saw the video," he said. "You saw a child walking home. You saw how quickly authority became violence. But what you didn't see were the nights after, when Malik couldn't sleep. When he asked why someone trained to protect would see him as a threat." The room grew silent. "I'm not here for sympathy," Aaron said. "I'm here because I know the system. I helped build parts of it. And now, I will help tear down the parts that are broken." He pressed a button, and a map lit up with police precincts where complaints had piled up. "Starting today," Aaron announced, "we will launch a task force with the Civil Rights Division. We will audit all cases of police misconduct involving children, starting with Fairfax." One agent raised his hand. "Aaron, do you really think the department can handle that much scrutiny? It will open old wounds." Aaron's eyes locked onto his. "Good. Some wounds need to bleed before they can heal." Outside the room, the world was already moving. Malik's case spread across the nation, reigniting conversations about how young people were treated by police. Civil rights lawyers filed motions in 3 different states within the week, all using Johnson versus Doyle as precedent. But while Aaron led the fight in Washington, Malik faced his own quiet battle back at school, one step, one voice, and one sketch at a time. In the cafeteria, whispers slowly turned into real conversations. Kids who had never even said hello to Malik before now came and sat beside him. They asked him many questions. Some of the questions he didn't know how to answer. One boy leaned close and asked, "Are you scared? Do you like to walk alone now?" Malik picked up his juice box, took a long sip, and then said, "Yeah, sometimes I do get scared. But being scared doesn't mean you stop walking." Later in gym class, the teacher gave Malik and a few other kids an assignment. They had to write an essay on what justice means. Justice is a big word, and most kids thought about police, laws, or courts. But Malik didn't write about laws or courts. He wrote about something different. He wrote about fairness. He wrote about how justice wasn't only about a courtroom. It was also a feeling, a moment when something wrong stopped being seen as normal. Malik didn't show his essay to anyone, not even to his dad. But his teacher read it and thought it was so powerful that she put it in a frame and hung it up on the classroom wall. That same week, something surprising and important happened. An email was sent to Aaron's secure inbox. The subject line said, "Check Officer Doyle's file." He wasn't acting alone. Aaron's eyes widened. The email had an attachment, a scanned document. It was a disciplinary report from the year 2018. The report showed that Officer Doyle had once been investigated for using too much force on a teenager in another county. But instead of Doyle being punished, the complaint had been hidden. It had been signed off by a supervisor who closed the case quickly. The signature was from Sergeant Leonard Dunley, the same man Aaron had seen at Doyle's hearing, whispering to other officers, the same man who seemed too interested in protecting Doyle. Aaron's pulse began to race. He had suspected for a long time that there was a network of cover-ups in the police department. Now he had real proof. Without waiting, Aaron forwarded the document straight to Internal Affairs with a simple note: time to expand the investigation. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Sergeant Dunley sat in the locker room staring at his phone. The screen flashed with breaking news. Second officer under review in Malik Johnson case. Dunley's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. He had underestimated Aaron, but he was not ready to give up yet. That evening, the sun was going down over Washington, D.C. The sky turned violet and gold. On the rooftop of their apartment, Aaron and Malik stood together. Malik leaned against the railing and looked out over the city. "Dad," he asked quietly, "do you think people will ever stop looking at me differently?" Aaron stepped beside him. "I hope not." Malik turned to him, confused. "Why?" Aaron answered, "Because you are different. You didn't run away. You didn't lash out. You stood up. That kind of different is what the world needs more of." Malik looked down, trying not to smile too big. Then another thought came to him. "Dad, what if this happened to someone else's kid? What if they didn't have you?" Aaron was silent for a long moment. He finally said softly, "That's the question I ask myself every single day." Malik nodded slowly. "Then maybe we need to make sure it doesn't matter who your dad is." Aaron looked at his son. In that moment, he didn't just see a boy who had gone through something painful. He saw a leader in the making. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Aaron let himself feel something dangerous but beautiful: hope. The disciplinary hearing for Sergeant Dunley was not supposed to be public. But by the time it started, the hallway outside the boardroom was packed. Reporters stood with notepads ready. Legal observers whispered to one another. A few off-duty officers stood around, pretending not to care but listening closely. Word had spread quickly. A second officer in the Malik Johnson case was facing accusations. Not just of helping Doyle, but of hiding his earlier misconduct that could have prevented the whole incident. Inside the boardroom, Aaron sat at one end of the table. He wasn't there as an FBI agent this time. He was there as a father. Across from him sat Sergeant Dunley, stiff in his chair, his jaw clenched. He still wore his uniform even though he was on leave. His lawyer, a sharp-eyed man in a gray suit, leaned over to whisper to him. But Dunley barely moved. His gaze was locked directly on Aaron. The hearing officer began to read from the file. "Sergeant Dunley, you are being investigated for willfully suppressing a prior misconduct report involving Officer Ryan Doyle. This report was filed in 2018 by a teenager and his family. Evidence shows you dismissed the complaint and failed to report it properly. This was against department policy." Dunley's voice was low but firm. "There was no evidence in that case. It was baseless." The officer replied, "And yet you never logged the interview. You never submitted the footage. You closed the case in less than 24 hours. "I used my discretion," Dunley argued. Aaron leaned forward. His voice was calm but cutting. "You used your bias." For the first time, Dunley looked straight at Aaron. "You think this is about race?" "I think this is about power," Aaron answered, steady as stone. "And what happens when it's unchecked?" The hearing paused for deliberation. Outside the room, Malik waited with Elena Vega. She had come quietly, but with determination. She wanted to see it through. Elena asked Malik, "You nervous?" Malik tried to shake his head. "Not really." "Okay. Maybe a little." Elena smiled. "Then remember what you wrote in your essay. Justice isn't a courtroom. It's a feeling." The doors opened. Everyone went back inside. The verdict was read. Based on the evidence and testimony, Sergeant Leonard Dunley is found guilty of obstruction and gross negligence. He is to be relieved of duty effective immediately. His pension is frozen. And this case will be sent to the district attorney. Gasps filled the room. Dunley's lawyer dropped his pen. Dunley jumped to his feet. "You can't do this. I served this department for 23 years. The officer didn't even look at him. And in 23 seconds, you erased it." Security moved forward and escorted him out. That evening, the video of the ruling leaked online. People reacted instantly. Headlines appeared: Second Fairfax officer fired in Malik Johnson case. Cover-up confirmed. Whistleblower in turn credited. But even as justice moved forward, something new was beginning. 2 days later, Malik was invited to speak at a televised youth justice forum in D.C. Aaron told him, "You don't have to do this." But Malik shook his head. "I want to. People listened last time. Maybe they'll listen again." At the forum, many teens shared their stories. Then Malik stepped up to the microphone. He spoke without notes. "I used to think grown-ups were always right," he said. "But now I know sometimes they just hope kids won't ask questions." He spoke about fear, how it stays even when the sirens are gone. He spoke about silence, how it feels safe but is not. "I thought no one would believe me," he said, "but someone did. And that changed everything." At home, Aaron sat on the couch, watching the live stream. His hands rested on his knees, his heart pounding harder than it ever had during an FBI negotiation. Beside him, Monique covered her mouth with her hand, tears in her eyes. At the precinct, dozens of officers watched too. One new officer turned to his partner. "I think we'll be trained on this kid's case soon." His partner nodded. "Good. We should be." The forum ended with a standing ovation. That night, Aaron's phone buzzed. It was the FBI director. "We want you to lead a policy rewrite," he said. "And we want Malik involved." Aaron hesitated. "He's just a kid." "No," the director replied. "He's a citizen who stood taller than most of us ever have." When Aaron told Malik, the boy blinked in surprise. "They want me to help change the rules?" Aaron smiled. "They want you to help write them." Malik grinned. For the first time since the arrest, he didn't feel like a victim. He felt like the beginning of something bigger. That night, Malik sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cocoa and his sketchbook. He didn't draw superheroes this time. Instead, he drew a new kind of badge, a shield with a pencil crossing a microphone. Under it he wrote, "Voice Matters." Aaron watched from the hallway quietly. Monique hummed upstairs, folding laundry. The house felt peaceful again, not because things went back to normal, but because this peace was earned. Soon after, Malik joined his father at a national meeting on youth policing. He was the youngest advisor ever. When it was his turn to speak, he held up his drawing and said, "This isn't real yet, but I want every kid to know their voice matters. Just because you're young doesn't mean you're powerless." People clapped, some cried. Later, Aaron received a message. Officer Doyle's civil suit was dismissed. "No appeal allowed." Malik read it softly. "It's over." Aaron exhaled. "For us, it's just beginning." Weeks later, Aaron turned down a promotion and instead created a new national task force for youth outreach. Malik worked as an honorary helper, speaking and designing tools. A month later, at school, a mural was shown. It wasn't of Malik, but of many kids holding hands under the words, "See us first." The crowd cheered. Malik didn't take the microphone. He let the mural speak for itself. That night, he posted his own video. "I didn't expect this," he said. "I didn't want to go viral. I just wanted to walk to the park. But if my story made you think or speak up, then it's bigger than me now. Stay loud. Stay kind. Stay watching. The world doesn't change with silence. It changes with us." He clicked a post. And on thousands of phones, the story of a boy who once only wanted to walk to the park grew into something new, a movement. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more kind and powerful stories. Watch our next video for another unforgettable journey. And share this story with someone who needs it today.